I hope you all are safe and healthy at your homes. The agro-food sector is of a major importance in many economies worldwide. In many countries, the food and drink industry is a leading industrial sector. Food is a serious component of everybody's daily life activities, and it is recognized the contribution of safe food to a healthy life. For this reason, food safety and the protection of end consumer health is of increasing concern not only for the consumers but also for governments, professional associations, and all organizations involved in the food chain, from the primary production to retailers and other food businesses that put food products at the disposal of the population. Food safety is used as a scientific discipline describing the handling, preparation, and storage of food in ways that prevent foodborne illness. This includes a number of routines that should be followed to avoid potential hazards related with food labeling, food hygiene, food additives, control of hazards, and good manufacturing practices. The prevention of multiple types of hazards with very distinctive origins requires a comprehensive and integrated approach to food safety in order to address food safety risks in everyday, more complex and globalized food chains. And each one of us have that responsibility to ensure the safety of food. By saying this, I would like to welcome you all to the international webinar on food safety standards and hazard issues, which is organized by Research Department of Aquaculture and Fishery Microbiology of MES Ponnani College in association with Institutions Innovation Council of the college. The department had its inception in 1995 with a postgraduate course to train the local people to cater the increasing need in fisheries and allied sectors. And obviously, it has set its milestones in the years ahead, where in 2006, the department was elevated to the level of research center under University of Calicut offering PhD program in aquaculture and fisheries. The already passed out 16 batches of PG students justifies the success journey ever since the inception. Now, let us move on to the official session of the evening. Let us start with the welcome speech. And for that, I would like to invite the head of the Department of Aquaculture and Fishery Microbiology, Dr. A. Zubair. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Aisha. Respected principal and Dr. Muhammad Rafiq, then Mr. Jason Alapash, our secretary Rashid sir, and all the delegates and the students who are attending this webinar, and my dear students. Actually, this is a great occasion of pleasure for me at this point of time, because we have been planning to organize this webinar for a very long time. But due to many reasons, we couldn't, but we have been able to do it this year itself. Actually, we all know that we are actually going through a pandemic, and it is very difficult nowadays to conduct classes online and to conduct online seminars. So fortunately for us, we have this platform now from various, such as a Google Meet, Zoom, etc. So we can conduct many webinars, etc. And department is conducting webinars in diverse areas, especially in the field of aquaculture and fisheries. But in the case of, I think it is the first time we are doing this in the field of food safety and quality control for the first time here during this last 2 years. Of course, we do conduct training for the students in the field of HACCP regularly every year, but a webinar or seminar is not rarely conducted because the area is quite remote and it's not easy for the delegate to reach that area certain times. But because webinars, now we have participants from various countries, including UAE, US, Australia, and Bangladesh, etc. And many of them have registered, and some of them may be joining within the time frame during the lectures going on. And as far as department is concerned, the department started in 1995, as told before, and it has done a wonderful job. We've been elevated to the research department, and many people are doing research in this department apart from their MSc course in fisheries and aquaculture. And we also had another course in fish processing and quality control, innovative program TGC, which we plan to continue. So, as far as the departments are concerned, it is a successful department from this begin in 1995. It has been emerged as a major department. It is the only department in the University of Calicut to conduct a course in the field of fisheries and fish processing. And now I move into my job of welcoming all of you. First of all, I'd like to welcome Principal of MES Penani College, Dr. Ajins Muhammad, who's actually the person behind most of the webinars in the college. Ever since he joined the college, he's actually supporting all of us, and we need taking initiatives to start the webinars at every month. And we've been doing that. I welcome that. I welcome, sir, to this webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, I also welcome Dr. Muhammad Rafiq. Dr. Muhammad Rafiq, you know, is actually is a product of Industrial Fisheries Department of Cochin University. And he did his MSc in Industrial Fisheries and followed by his PhD from the same department. And he's the CEO of the Asper Group, and he's doing a wonderful job in that field, conducting seminars, conducting webinars, and giving training in various as a resource person in various sectors. And we have been actually lucky to get him here as a resource person. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Then I welcome Mr. Jason Alapart, who is the another resource person, who's a person. I know him personally from 1990 onwards. He was my colleague and was my friend during my brief stay at Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology. He's a product of Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology, and he's done his post-graduation in the field of food and nutrition and dietetics. And he's been doing some very good work in the field of food safety and related sector for a very long time in abroad, especially in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and in countries, etc. And I welcome you, Mr. Jason Alapart, to this August gathering.
Thank you, Mr. Subhash.
Then all my colleagues from various institutes, from various other institutes, we have actually 220 participants from various institutes, from universities, seafood industry, medical field, etc. And some of them haven't joined, maybe joining soon. I welcome all of them to this August gathering of this webinar. Then I welcome my dear colleagues, Dr. Rajul Shanis and Dr. Mujib for their contribution to this seminar. I know them, they have been doing some wonderful work. Without them, we will not be able to have this webinar here. I welcome both of them to this webinar. And then I welcome all my students of this institute of MES Penani College and all my colleagues of MES Penani College to this webinar. Thank you very much. Now I invite Principal for his inaugural address. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's time for the inauguration, which is indispensable for any event. For that, let me invite the principal of college, who has also been constantly with us through the thick and thin, Dr. Ajins P. Muhammad. Sir, please.
Thank you, Aisha. Respected resource persons of the day, Dr. Muhammad Rafiq, Mr. Jason Alapat, Secretary and Correspondent of MES Penani College, Mr. Muhammad Rashid, Head of the Department, Dr. Subair, Dr. Rijul Shanis, Dr. Mujib Rahman, and all other participants who are attending this webinar, which is organized by the Aquaculture Department of MES Penani College. This is an international webinar which is organized by the Aquaculture Department, which is commencing from today, 4th and 5th of July 2021. Nowadays, we are very much closely discussing about food safety, food nutrition, food security, food hazards, etc., because all these terms are almost closely linked. food contamination happens when foods are corrupted with another substance. Normally, it can happen in the process of production, maybe transportation, packaging, storage, sales, and cooking processes. And it can be physical contamination, or chemical contamination, or biological contamination. The statistics shows that the unsafe food containing harmful bacteria, viruses, parasites, or chemical substances can cause more than 200 different diseases, ranging from diarrhea to cancers. Around the world, an estimated 600 million, almost 1 in 10 people, fall ill after eating contaminated food each year. So at this juncture, the Department of Aquaculture is organizing this this vibrant webinar, international webinar on food safety and standards, because this year we are expecting our NAC inspection. This within some 3 or 4 months, we are expecting our NAC inspection, and as a process of that NAC inspection process, we have already given direction to all the departments to conduct at least 3 or 4 international webinars in this particular academic year. And this particular webinar, this international webinar, which is organized by the Aquaculture Department, is in association with Innovation Council, India Institute Innovation Council, which is just started at MES Panani College in this academic year only. So I really congratulate Dr. Subair, Dr. Rijul Shanis, and Dr. Mujib Rahman for organizing this webinar, this international webinar. And I once again extend a wholehearted welcome to Dr. Mohammad Rafiq and Mr. Jason Alapat, being the resource person of this webinar. And with all your permission, I declare that the webinar, international webinar, is inaugurated. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, let us move on to the most interesting talk of the day on the topic safety standards and on the topic food safety standards and hazards. Dr. Mohammad Rafiq KT has 16 years of experience in the food industry and has been delivering auditing and training services for various schemes such as BRC GSFS, which is the British Retail Consortium Global Standard for Food Safety, FSSC 22000, which is the Food Safety System Certification, ISO 22000, which is the International Organization for Standardization, ISO 9001, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, ASC COC, ASC Farm and Ethical Standards. He is also an approved trainer for HABC, HACCP, and Food Safety Level 4 programs. He completed graduation in zoology, post-graduation in industrial fisheries, MBA in international business, and PhD in multiple food safety management system standards. Dr. Rafiq is the CEO of Aspire Training Research Consulting LLC, Dubai, UAE, and Kochi, India, which provides training services, market researches, feasibility studies, management system consulting, and technical consulting services for the food industry. I would like to wholeheartedly welcome Dr. Mohammad Rafiq KT for the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Aisha, for the introduction. I hope all of you can hear me properly. Kindly confirm, Aisha, that you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, very good morning, all respected principal, Dr. Zubair sir, and other staff members from MES Panani College, Mr. Jason Alapat, and those who have joined for the session or watching online. So, regarding this particular webinar, food safety hazards and food safety management system standards and hazard issues, let me share my screen. This webinar, as principal and Zubair sir explained, this is planned for 2 days, today and tomorrow. And today I'll be going through food safety management system standards and significance. And tomorrow there is another session by Mr. Jason Alapat on hazard issues and controls. So in this session, the focus areas are food safety and its significance, what is a management system standard, and principles of FSMS, Food Safety Management System Standards, and PDCA concept in the FSMS standards, the different types of FSMS standards and key contents in the standards, in the FSMS standards. I'll take about an hour to cover this area, and then if there are any questions, we can discuss. And food safety, we all know what is food safety. Even at the opening speech, principal has given an outline of food safety and its significance. Food safety is food, it's providing safe food. Technically speaking, it's an assurance that food will not cause an adverse health effect for the consumer when it is prepared and consumed in accordance with the intended use. This is the definition by ISO, International Organization for Standardization. So it is basically of providing safe food, and that is free from all sort of hazards or contaminants. The hazards can be of different types, which is basically chemical hazards, physical hazards, biological hazards, or allergenic hazards. Chemical hazards may be like during the process of collecting the food from the source. Maybe it can be from the farm, or it can be from the other factories, or during the transport or delivery. So at any point of time, if there is a contamination with chemicals or chemical hazards, which can be in the form of pesticides, antibiotics, or lubricants, or any other process chemical which are unintended to be in the food. So those are chemical hazards. Physical hazards can be like any physical object, like metal pieces or button or staple pins, or any nuts or bolts which might come into food product from the factory or during the supply chain, at any point during the supply chain. Biological hazards, similarly the pathogens. Which can be microorganisms like bacteria or virus, which can cause any health issue to the consumer, or allergenic hazards. So allergens here, which can be like peanuts, or there are multiple varieties of allergens which can cause allergenic reactions to different people. So these are the broad categories of hazards which cause food to become unsafe. And the significance of food safety, the principal has already given an outline. What is the significance of food safety? So unsafe food containing harmful bacteria, virus, parasites, or chemical substances cause more than 200 diseases, starting from diarrhea up to cancer. So there are quite a lot of diseases from unsafe food. Almost 1 in 10 people in the world fall ill after eating contaminated food, and 420,000 die every year. This shows a huge number of death that happens because of consuming unsafe food. And over 125,000 children, especially below the 5 years of age, die every year eating unsafe food. And again, if you see the socio-economic impact of unsafe food, US dollar 110 billion is lost each year in productivity and medical expenses resulting from unsafe food in low and middle income countries. This is only from low and middle income countries. This shows the overall socio-economic or health related impact of having unsafe food, which is really a huge concern in the food supply chain. And this figure is from WHO fact sheet, and this is the latest data from World Health Organization. So this shows the significance of food safety, why there need to be standards or controls or management system procedures to ensure the delivery of safe food. Year by year, or maybe day by day, when it goes by, we depend on packaged food. Earlier, we were more dependent on, like our own maybe kitchen gardens and so on. Now we are more dependent on packaged food. So there is always a risk of food safety issue as it is handled at multiple levels. When it comes from farm, if it is a vegetable product, then it comes from farm, and then when it goes through different supply chain agents, so there can be different issues associated with food safety at different levels. So what is the system to control these kind of food safety issues? So there comes the relevance of the food safety management system standards, which need to be followed by different supply chain agents. So what is a management system? When we talk about food safety, the next comes, the food safety management system. What is the management system means? The way in which an organization manages the interrelated parts of business in order to achieve its objectives. Interrelated parts of the business means in an organization, if we take about a factory producing pasteurized milk, if you take that factory, there will be different departments which receives the milk: purchase department, or receiving department, maintenance department, production department, quality assurance department, maybe marketing and sales department, research and development department. There could be different departments. How these different departments work together to achieve the common objectives of the organization, that is providing safe food. So this is about the management system, how all these departments or how all these units in the organization work together to achieve the objectives of the organization. That is management system. And the management system includes organizational structure with different functions, departments or sub-processes, and roles and responsibilities defined for each division, each department. And there will be proper planning for the implementation of the management system and execution of the management system, the operation part. And FSMS standards, the management system standards, because management system standards management system can have different focus. It can focus on food safety, it can focus on quality, it can focus on environment or health and safety. So there will be different set of procedures focusing on quality, food safety, health and safety, or information security, or different aspects if we take. So the management system standards which focus, or the management system which focus on food safety are called food safety management systems, and there are defined standards. So the adoption of FSMS, the adoption of a food safety management system, is a strategic decision for an organization that can help to improve its overall performance in food safety. So as I indicated, there are different management system standards like quality management systems, environmental management systems, occupational health and safety management systems, information security management systems, etc. So for a food company, of course, the most important will be to follow the food safety management system standards to ensure safe production and supply of food. And major food safety management system standards followed in the industry are ISO 22000, 2018, FSSC 22000, BRC Global Standard for Food Safety, IFS International Featured Standards, IFS Food, SQ of Safe Quality Food, Food Safety Code for Manufacturing. There are many food safety management system standards. I listed the most important, like ISO 22000, FSSC 22000, BRC Global Standard for Food Safety, or IFS Food, so on. And who developed these standards? Now, if you take ISO 22000, ISO 22000 is developed by International Organization for Standardization, which is a non-governmental international organization with a membership of 165 national standard bodies. There are different there are standard bodies or standard setting and development bodies in each country. For example, in India, Bureau of Indian Standards. Or if you take UAE, UAE has got their own standard developing or setting body. Or if it is Saudi, there will be, if it is EU, in EU also there are different standard setting bodies. So all the standard developing bodies from 165 member countries represent that country in ISO, and it works like more or less like a UN setup with headquarters in Geneva, where the ISO, International Organization for Standardization, work on the development of different types of standards. And there are over 20,000 standards already published by ISO in different disciplines. Where ISO 22000 is one out of that which focus on food safety management system for the food industry. And FSSC 22000 is a scheme, it's foundation FSSC 22000, that is that promoting FSSC 22000 and governed by an independent board of stakeholders consisting of representatives from several sectors in the food industry. And BRC Global Standard for Food Safety, which is another well-known food safety management system standard followed in the industry, which is promoted by British Retail Consortium, founded in 1996 by retailers who wanted to harmonize food safety standards across the supply chain. So basically, if you see, the global food supply chain is very much organized in majority of the countries. If you take the scenario of UK, it is managed by major brand owners like Marks and Spencer, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Lovering, Waitrose, and so on. And this is the same case majority of the European or well-developed countries, and even other countries. It is getting organized very much to brand owners who manage the retail supply of food, of course, along with other products. So ensuring food safety is a challenge for these retailers. So in that perspective, each retailer was having their own, or still they are having their own food safety management system standard. If you take the scenario of UK, Marks and Spencer has got their own code of practices for ensuring food safety in the supply chain. Tesco has got Tesco food manufacturing standard. Sainsbury has got their own set of requirements. So similarly, each retailer has got their own set of food safety management system requirements. So they wanted to harmonize all the individual proprietary standards and come up with a common standard. That's how in 1998, the first BRC Global Standard for Food Safety was released. Even the concept of food safety management system is not so old. The first public FSMS standard was released by ISO in 2005. If you take FSSC or BRC or IFS, these are private schemes. Maybe ISO is the scheme. ISO owns the public scheme, which was released in 2005 only. So it is not very old. Basically, industry was depending mostly on HACCP certification, which is in fact a part of the broad FSMS concept that we will see in the coming slides. And the management system standards, the FSMS standards works based on the management principles, which is applicable to other quality management system or environmental or health and safety management systems. So any management system works based on the 7 principles like customer focus, leadership, engagement of people, process approach, improvement, evidence-based decision making, relationship management. If you take ISO 22000 standard, food safety management system standard, it works based on these 7 principles as a management standard. So customer focus means organization has to be customer focused. Like in terms of food safety management system, organization shall identify the customer requirements in terms of food safety and try to meet the requirements of the customer and satisfy the customer, providing safe food, meeting the requirements of the customer. And the leadership, organization has to take leadership, or maybe there shall be leadership within the organization to ensure effective implementation of the management system standard and its maintenance. So the leadership, the involvement of the management is significant in the management system standards. And also engagement of people. It's not about the management alone or senior people in the organization. It is engaging all levels of people in the organization from top to bottom, engaging the people to achieve the objectives of the management system. And also process approach. If you see a production line, for example, a factory producing frozen chicken, or a factory producing juice in PET bottles. So there are different processes in the organization, right from the receiving of the milk, its storage, and then multiple levels of processing, pasteurization, then final packing, and then it goes to the dispatch and the distribution, of course. So the entire production system need to be broken down into processes and see the effectiveness of each and every process for the overall performance of the management system. So process approach is a key principle of the management system standards. And also improvement. Organization shall be improvement focused. Organization has to demonstrate improvement in their management system, and it is a requirement actually. It is, like organization want to improve or does not want to improve, that is a different thing. But when the organization follows a management system standard like FSMS standard, demonstrating improvement in the food safety aspects is a requirement. And also decision making shall be based on evidences. Any decision taken in terms of the operation of the FSMS shall be based on the facts, figures, and for example, test results. Test results forms the evidences. Any improvement in related to FSMS shall be based on the actual evidences. And relationship management. Organization has to ensure good relationship with all the stakeholders of the business. A business has got many stakeholders. If you take a factory producing milk, as I just mentioned, so there are different set of stakeholders like suppliers, the management, employees, customers, different service providers, like pest control service providers or testing or calibration service providers to the company. So there are many stakeholders involved or maybe supporting that particular organization to achieve the production or to achieve the objective of the organization, providing food. So ensuring good relationship with the stakeholders, that is very important. We all say, like if a person has to improve, a person want to, maybe excel, he has to or she has to mention good relationship with everyone. Same way, the organization has to ensure good relationship with the stakeholders so that the organization can achieve its objectives. So these 7 principles are the core principles of any management system standard, and these are very much used in quality management system concepts, and the same concept is used in food safety management system standards too. And also the plan, do, check, act concept, the PDCA cycle. All the management system standards follow the same concept, like planning the system, implementing it, then evaluate the performance of the implemented system to see whether it is happening as per the plan, and act for the improvement. It's like we all follow the PDCA cycle in our day-to-day life. We plan our day, then do it, execute it. For example, we plan for this particular event, then do it, and then checking whether it happened as per the plan. Was it effective? And if any areas to be improved, act upon for the improvement. So any person follow this PDCA concept in our day-to-day life. Same way, the management system standards also follow the plan, do, check, act, which is proposed, organized by Management Research Deming. So it's otherwise known as Deming's PDCA cycle. So what I'm trying to say is the management system standards follow the same principle of plan, do, check, act, which you can see directly in the management system standards. So planning the FSMS standards, planning the implementation. Once the implementation is planned, like provide, identify what are the resources required, what are the procedures required, what are the people required, and like what is the product specification, what is the customer requirement. So plan based on the requirements and based on the objectives of the organization, and then implement it, produce the safe food as per the requirement, as per the plan. And after the production, check it, including the monitoring, measurement, or the testing of the products, and also evaluating the performance of the entire management system. As simple as testing the product or monitoring the process is a check, and see whether it is meeting the requirement. If it is not meeting the requirement, what is the action? or how to improve upon. And this cycle continues. This is known as PDCA cycle, and as I mentioned, all the management system for standards follow this PDCA cycle. And if we talk about certification, organizations go for certification of their food safety management system standards. Certification is the formal confirmation of implemented systems and standards after verification by an accredited certification body. If the organization wants to go for certification of the implemented ISO 22000 standard or similar BRC standard, they need to approach a certification body. Like there are many certification bodies, for example, Bureau Veritas, TUV, SGS, Intertech, DNB, and so on. So organization has to approach an accredited certification body, and certification body gives the formal confirmation after evaluating the system that the organization has implemented so and so standard and meets the requirement of the standard. Why organizations require FSMS and its certification? FSMS certification is required, of course. The basic aim is to provide safe food, to ensure safe food is supplied to the market. And also it's a customer requirement. In majority of the countries or majority of the retailers, as I mentioned, they demand or they dictate to follow certain FSMS standards. For example, if you send the products to UK, maybe they're mainly they ask for British Retail Consortium, Global Standard for Food Safety, BRC food. Or if you send to Italy, Belgium, or France, or those countries, it's a requirement to have IFS food. So your customer will mandate. Or in other countries, or maybe most of the places, at least ISO 22000 is a requirement from the side of customer, especially organized customers. The wholesalers or retailers, they will dictate to have FSMS certification. And also it's a legal requirement in many countries. Having any FSMS certification or at least a HACCP certification is a legal requirement. And also organizations initiate from their side as an effort to improve their FSMS. So these are the reasons why organizations go for food safety standard certifications. And of course, certification provides increased credibility and recognition to the organization, improved consistency in the system, and also better process and process control, enhanced managerial controls in the operation, and increased customer satisfaction. And employees are also empowered. Employees feel confidence that there is a system which ensures safe production of food. So, and employees are also trained and motivated regularly as part of the system. So employees also feel empowered. And if you see the ISO 22000 as a sample standard, there are, as I mentioned, there are different types of standards. The most commonly followed food safety management system standard, I have taken ISO 22000 here to see what are the key contents of the standard. If you see the requirements of ISO 22000, that is split into 10 different sections, starting from scope of the standard, the references used in the standard, and terms and definition, then context of the organization, leadership, planning, support, operation, performance evaluation, and improvement. So these are the 10 sections in the standard. Section 1, 2, 3, that is scope. Scope explains why this standard is required and to whom it is applicable, which says it is to ensure the production and supply of safe food, and also it is applicable to any agent in the food supply chain. So ISO 22000 can be followed by a farm producing fruits and vegetables, or a transporting company transporting fruits and vegetables from the farm to the processing company. The processing company who produce juice or other products out of these fruits, they can also follow. And again, a packing company, or if it is by the same company or repacking company, they can also do. A storage company who store the product before giving to wholesaler or by the wholesaler, they can also go for ISO 22000. And of course, retailer. These are the direct agents in the direct links in the food supply chain. Even FSMS can be followed by the indirect links, like a pest control agency who's doing pest control service provider, pest control services to the company, or company producing machinery required for that, or a company producing packaging materials, or a company producing processing aids or processing chemicals, they can also follow ISO 22000. So that is the scope of the ISO 22000. And section 2 talks about the references used by the standard, mandatory references. And section 3 talks about the terms and definitions used in the standards. The requirement of the standard explains the key principles, contents, and the requirements from section 4 to section 10. We will see what are the key requirements of section 4 to 10 briefly. Section 4 talks about the context of the organization. What are the key business issues in terms of food safety, which can be occurring within the organization or outside the organization? The key business issues, like for example, identifying the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats of the organization in terms of food safety. That is a requirement. And also identify the interested parties. Who are the interested parties related to the business? If we take a retail company, maybe a company selling food products, or retail outlet, or retail shop, who are their stakeholders, their suppliers, their customers, their employees, their service providers, regulatory bodies, including the owners and the board of directors. So there are different stakeholders. So who are the stakeholders? What are their requirements? What are their needs and expectations in terms of food safety? That also need to be identified as part of the FSMS. And the scope of the FSMS, what are the key products and processes by the organization? If the retail outlet is selling the food and beverage, what kind of food, what kind of beverage is supplied, that need to be defined in the FSMS, and the entire FSMS requirements need to be implemented. So that is mentioned in the section 4, context of the organization. And section 5 talks about the leadership. As we mentioned already, when we discussed the quality management system principles or the management principles, leadership is the key area where the involvement of the management, the commitment of the management for the implementation of the FSMS. Maybe certificate, there are certain scenarios management use or the owners use FSMS certification only for marketing purpose. It is not that way. Involvement of the management for the implementation of the FSMS standards and their commitment is a requirement of the FSMS standard. And need of defining a food safety policy, the high level commitment by the management or by the organization to achieve food safety need to be stated as a food safety policy. And there shall be a defined organization structure that need to be provided by the management with roles, responsibilities, and authorities. Who is the responsible person for receiving milk or purchasing milk in a dairy industry or in a factory producing pasteurized milk, and who is the responsible person for production, who is the responsible person for quality or HACCP, or different roles and responsibilities within the organization need to be defined. And section 6 talks about planning, where the key areas are risk management and setting objectives, and also change management. Risk management is a requirement of the FSMS now, where the organization need to identify different types of risk related to each and every process and also the entire FSMS. For example, what are the risks related to receiving of the milk in the dairy unit, or maybe in the factory producing pasteurized milk? There, what are the risks related to receiving, and what are the improvements that can be brought in the particular process? Maybe if you go to storage area, what are the risks in the storage area, and what are the controls? What are the improvement areas to be brought? It's not only about the hazards. The hazards, there is a separate discussion like physical hazards, chemical hazards, biological hazards, where we focus only about hazards. Apart from the risk, for example, in the storage area, our failure is a risk, which we do not identify as a physical hazard or a chemical hazard or biological hazard. Or even employees not coming for work on time is a risk, in fact, which can cause process delays and products related issues. Or employees not comfortable to work in the place. Maybe there is no comfortable work environment for the employees. That is also a risk where employees will not work appropriately or adequately, which can impact food safety. So any risk which can directly or indirectly affect food safety need to be identified, and organization need to identify opportunities for improvement. And also measurable food safety objectives shall be established. Every business set objectives, measurable objectives in terms of money, how much revenue was built, or what was the net profit in the last year, what is the profit to be targeted this year. Here it talks about objectives in terms of food safety, how you are going to improve food safety, how many food safety complaints received last year, and what is your plan to make it to zero, or what was the product related test result in terms of, like, for example, what was the total plate count in the finished product when you compare with acceptable level, and what was last year, what is this year, and what are the number of trainings or how many hours of training you have given in terms of food safety to your employees, and how you are improving it. So measurable food safety objectives needs to be established as per FSMS, and that need to be evaluated regularly whether organization is achieving it or not. And also change management is a requirement of the FSMS, where organizations face different problems, operational issues during a change. For example, a person has come, maybe a new manager has come, or existing manager has resigned who has been working in the organization for longer time, or a new machinery has come, or existing machinery is removed, or a new product is going to start from tomorrow, or maybe in the next month. So when there is a change in the operation or in the process, definitely there will be an impact on the product or process which can affect food safety, or which might affect food safety. So what is the system for managing the changes to ensure that the change is effectively planned and implemented, so that there is no impact on the process, product, or service by the organization? So change management, risk management, the key performance indicators or measurable objectives are the requirements of the FSMS. And also section 7 talks about the support to operation, actually the supporting functions in the organization, like resources, provide adequate people, infrastructure, work environment, etc. Then competence, ensure the competence and awareness of the employees, effective communication, and the documentation systems. Resources means providing people, ensure that adequate number of people are there within the organization for the production, quality assurance, and delivery activities. And also infrastructure, whatever infrastructure required, including building, machinery, tools, equipment. It can be IT infrastructure or any infrastructure required for the production operation activity need to be provided. And the work environment, this is an important area in the FSMS. Work environment, like comfortable work environment for the employees. Maybe like if a particular area is so hot, like kitchen is very hot and there is chance of sweating, definitely it can cause hygiene issues and contamination to the product. Or maybe the kitchen is fine in terms of physical environment, but the employee is not comfortable because he has come for work in the early morning at 6 o'clock and he has to work till late night, 12 o'clock. This happens in many retail outlets or in the many factories. You know how factories work. So there will be heavy work pressure on the employees. Finally, what happens when he comes in the morning, he works perfectly. By afternoon, he will be literally tired. He will not be able to deliver his work as expected. So that also is going to affect food safety. So performance of the employees, the physical or psychological and also social aspects of the employees and the workplace. So how a comfortable workplace is provided to the employees for the safe production of food. So it's not only about hazards, so food safety has got different dimensions, social and psychological aspects of the employees working in a factory that has got significant impact on the, or direct impact on the food safety. And also competence. and regular training, educating the people in the organization. Ensure that employees, they work in the organization, they have basic training, education or experience as required by that particular role, and they are regularly made aware or educated on the requirements of the organization. And also effective communication. Communication everyone take very lightly, but the standards give a lot of focus on the communication. Most of the time, if you investigate behind a problem, there will be one reason: communication. I was not aware, or no one informed me, or that was not properly communicated. So those kind of issues will be there. Maybe customer requirement was communicated to the marketing department. Marketing department did not inform the particular requirement to production. Or production was aware, quality was not aware. That is why particular testing was not carried out. Or quality was aware, but production department was not aware. So they did not implement the particular control in the production. So these kind of communication issues will be there, whether it is internal or external. External means with the regulatory bodies, with suppliers. Now, everyone was aware within the organization, but the revised packaging specification was not communicated to supplier. The supplier gave the old, supplier gave the packaging material as per old specification, because the communication with the supplier was not effective or not adequate, not carried out. So effective communication is an important step or important requirement in the FSMS. This can be internal communication and external communication. And documentation. How the organization is preparing documents, records, procedures. So how it is defined, who has the responsibility of preparing documents and records. And if there is a procedure, who can amend it, who can approve the amendment. And how the records are stored and how long it is stored. If it is a soft copy, if it is in the digital form or electronic form, how the backup is taken. This is a important issue now, like management of soft copies, knowingly or unknowingly, and their documentation or majority of the documentation has moved to soft copies now. I have seen food processing companies, they work without single hard copy. You won't see any paper when you visit the organization. They work fully electronically. There are organizations. So how they manage their documentation? If anyone delete the file from the server, what is the backup system? And what is the control over backup? Whether the backup is retrievable as and when required. So otherwise, when there is a food safety issue, you will not be able to investigate where it happened and from which source and from which supplier this material was purchased. Those information, if it is in electronic form, whether it is hard copy. So whether it is hard copy or soft copy, protection of the documentation, that is important. And also implementation of the FSMS requirements, that is section 8 operation. So 4, 5, 6, 7, all the sections we are talking about planning as per PDCA cycle, which we discussed at the beginning. Section 8 is saying it's implementing it, operate, make the FSMS operational. So what are the operational planning and control for specific process? What are the procedures for receiving? What are the procedures for storing? What is the procedure for sterilization in the canned meat? Or what is the procedure for pasteurization of juice or pasteurization of milk? What are the time and temperature controls? Who has to monitor? How this has to be monitored? So that need to be defined. And also prerequisite programs. Prerequisite programs are the basic operational requirements or basic environmental conditions required for any food industry. Like there shall be potable water supply. There shall be good building, and proper maintenance and construction of the proper construction and maintenance of the building, proper wall, floor, ceiling, proper lighting, and also the basic hygiene protocols for the employees, uniforms, their change rooms, pest control procedures. So the basic programs to maintain good manufacturing practice, good sanitation practice, good hygiene practice. So all these prerequisite programs need to be defined and established. And also traceability. Traceability is a key area where organization need to have a traceability management system which includes the identification of finished product in such a way that it enables the traceability of the finished product throughout the entire supply chain within the organization and also outside the organization, at least to the raw material supplier. Now you have milk in the retail packet. If milk is there in the retail packet, what is the identification of that particular milk? And if you get any complaint, how will you identify on the date of production? And if you get the date of production, how will you take through the production line, whether it is A line, B line, or C line, and from which line this was produced? So if any particular issue with the A line, how you are tracking to A line, and to which raw material supplier, to which farmer, or to maybe the milk collection society, or to the best extent possible. So in this way, the traceability system need to be established. Mostly you will see as a customer, maybe in the form of barcodes or production lots. Even if you buy a packaged drinking water, there will be a traceability code on the packaged drinking water. It's a requirement of this standard. And also emergency preparedness. What is the system for emergency preparedness, for example? Emergency preparedness here, not in terms of health and safety of the employees working in the factory, it is on the food safety. If there is an emergency happen, how food safety is ensured. For example, now the current situation itself, the pandemic, there is spread of COVID. So it's an emergency situation. So how food safety is ensured during the pandemic season, especially if a person is infected in the factory, if a person is tested positive for COVID, how it is ensured that no food safety issue has happened in the organization. Or you have a flood, maybe there is a flood in the area of the factory, so there is backflow of water into the factory, or there is power failure. So how to manage power failure? Or there is a sudden strike where you cannot transport your purchased material or your finished product, so there is a spoilage or related food safety issue. So how to manage these kind of emergencies? So organization need to identify what are the emergencies that can happen considering the scenario of that particular organization, and how this will be managed when there is an emergency. And operation also discuss about HACCP. HACCP, maybe majority of us will be much familiar with HACCP than FSMS. The HACCP system is a part of FSMS. FSMS is a large umbrella of a large set of requirements where HACCP is a part. Probably HACCP forms 15 to 20% of the FSMS standard if you see overall requirements. So the hazard identification and assessing the hazards, developing the or establishing CCTs and critical control points, and implementing the HACCP systems. So that is a requirement. And also control of monitoring and measuring devices, for example, the thermometers, pressure gauges, weighing scales, what you use for food industry is correct or not, it's working perfectly or not. Maybe your thermometer is not working correctly, or it's not showing correct reading. How will you verify it? How will you calibrate it? So what is the system for calibration, verification, and regular monitoring of the devices or other monitoring and measuring methodologies used for the FSMS? And also who will do the verification? Now, when you implement the system, there will be a person for monitoring. Maybe the QA inspector or the quality assurance staff is doing the monitoring activity, or production supervisor is doing the monitoring activity. That is not enough. Who will do the verification, whether the monitoring is happening effectively or not? Like a managerial person, assistant manager, or production manager, or quality manager, or a food safety team leader, doing the verification of the entire FSMS to ensure that the monitoring and the implementation of the FSMS is happening as per the plan. And also identification of the non-conforming products. If any non-conforming product is produced or non-conforming, for example, the product produced like the frozen chicken that produced by the company, during end product testing, it was found that it is salmonella positive, which is beyond the acceptable limit. So how to deal with the contaminated product? So what are the procedures? What are the protocols? How the organization will reprocess if it is allowed, or rework, or dispose? Or if the product has gone to the market, what is the procedure to take it back? Like product recall procedures that need to be established. Once planning is completed, once it is implemented, that is section 8, then section 9 talks about performance evaluation. What you have implemented as per your operational procedures or the hazard plan, whether it is working effectively or not. So what is the monitoring system? What is the measurement that the organization follow? And based on monitoring and measurement, you have to collect data, information, analyze it, and see what is the trend, evaluate against the requirement. For example, the hand swab reading, the microbiological hand swab reading to see any pathogen or any total count beyond the acceptable limit. So what is the result in the last 6 months, the last 1 year, whether it is increasing or decreasing, is it within the acceptable limit or not? So there need to be an analysis and evaluation system. And also cross-functional auditing, like within the organization, there shall be a system to audit, like one department goes to another department and verify whether they are following the FSMS requirements as per the plan. For example, production manager goes to QA department and see if QA is following all the procedures and protocol as per the plan. QA manager will go to maintenance department, maintenance person will go to HR. So it's kind of cross-functional verification to see that the respective department is following their procedures and protocols. So internal auditing is a requirement. Of course, these internal auditors need to be trained and qualified to see how internal auditing or to experience how internal auditing is carried out. So internal auditing is a requirement of the FSMS standard here. And also management reviews. The organization need to conduct review of the entire FSMS at planned intervals. For example, the top management has to sit with the key managerial team and review the performance of the entire requirements of the standard. Standard has highlighted certain specific areas which need to be focused during management reviews. For example, how many deviations in the critical limit happened, or how many customer complaints were there, how many regulatory body complaints, how many risks are identified, and what is the performance of the risk, what are the key business issues and the actions taken against the issues, or what are the results of the internal audit, or any major internal product failures or process failures. So all these significant aspects need to be reviewed at planned intervals, like once in 3 months or once in 6 months, or and so on. And then they need to take actions and decisions for the improvement of the system. So improvement is a requirement. Identifying the weak areas, identifying the non-conformities or the deviations, and taking actions to improve. That is a requirement. And also continual improvement. Continual improvement means it is in the picture you can see a step-by-step improvement. Last year, your hygiene audit score was 70%. So for the first 6 months of this year, you put a target to make it to 75%. Last year it was 70. So this year for the first 6 months, you are putting a target to make it to 75. And then for the next 3 months, you make it to 80, then 85, then 90, and then try to improve, step by step. So if you achieve a particular target, maintain there, sustain that performance, then put the next target. This is the improvement expected by the standard. It is called continual improvement. Continuous improvement means from 70% you are trying to make it to 100% overnight, which is almost impossible. Even if you make somehow, maybe doing or maybe taking all the efforts overnight, there can be a failure at any point of time. It can roll back at any point of time. When you achieve the target of 75, taking an effort of 6 months and stabilizing it, then put a target to 80. Stabilize there maybe 2 or 3 months and see what are the concerns and challenges. Again, act on that, put another target, 85. This is called staircase model of improvement, which is robust methodology in improvement. That is called continual improvement, which is a requirement of the standard. And the FSMS need to be updated periodically based on the scientific updates, industry updates, or changes in the food safety regulations, or internal learning or internal research and development or any other related research and development, the food safety management system need to be periodically updated. And these are the certain developing areas in the FSMS, especially the concept of product safety management. Along with food safety management, product safety management is also the developing area. For example, a company implementing FSMS, maybe the company is producing packaging material for food industry. The company is producing tin cans or glass jars for packing pickles, or company producing poly bags for food industry. So there you cannot see food directly in the factory. So the terminology of product safety management is used by the standard. And also HACCP. Now HACCP, everyone is familiar with HACCP. So those who are in the food industry, they know HACCP very well. TACCP is also in discussion for quite some time. There are certain food safety management system standards like FSSC or BRC demands to have TACCP or WASP system in place. TACCP means identifying the threats to the company, threats to the product, threats to the process, any chance of intentional adulteration to the or intentional contamination to the product. For example, an employee is not happy with the organization. Production manager has terminated an employee or given notice to an employee. So he is leaving in the next 2 days or 3 days. So before he leaves, he just delete the data in the server. Or he just put 1 or 2 metal pieces in the product. We have seen multiple issues when we go for audit to different organizations. Or the competitor is not happy. So competitor is trying to contaminate the product. You must have seen, locally, in the villages, like if a farmer is making a good aquaculture activity, someone go there and contaminate the product and kill the fishes. That is the food safety threat, actually, a product safety threat. Someone is contaminating the product or adulterating the product, and basically it is a behavioral aspect or ideologically motivated. It is not to make the commercial gain most of the time. It is a behavioral aspect or ideologically motivated, which is called threat. This can be internal threat or external threat. Threat from the suppliers, threat from the service providers, threat from the competitors. So what are the different types of threats that need to be identified? Even it can be from the people living nearby and they are not happy with the factory. Probably there can be certain revenge, in terms of contaminating the product control. There are quite a lot of issues. If you Google it, you will find a lot of information on food safety threats. So threat assessment critical control point, or it is otherwise known as food defense plan, identifying the threats and developing the control measures. So along with HACCP is a requirement now in most of the FSMS standards, especially the benchmarked GFSA benchmark standards. It's a requirement, direct requirement. And also food fraud, identifying the vulnerabilities, like what are the adulteration or substitution possible for economic gains. For example, you are adding dry papaya seeds to pepper. It looks very similar to pepper. You get commercial gain. Or you add maybe stones or pebbles to rice, or grains to rice, or adding Sudan dye or red brick powder to chili powder. So these are the vulnerabilities. Or when you buy packaging material, you are asking for a food grade packaging material. You are getting a food grade certificate, but finally the product is not food grade. So what are the vulnerabilities of the raw material, ingredients, or packaging material for substitution or adulteration for economic gains? This is called food fraud or vulnerabilities, and the assessment is called vulnerability assessment critical control point, identifying the different vulnerabilities of the raw material. If you take a factory producing a mango pickle in the glass jar, you can imagine how many types of raw materials, packaging materials, or processing aids or ingredients are there. So vulnerability risk is very high. Or a factory, or maybe if you take air catering company, they will be having different sort of products. Or a restaurant you take, How many types of raw materials, ingredients, and processing chemicals are there? So if there is any kind of adulteration, how this is to be identified? What are the control measures to prevent the adulteration? So two areas, TACCEP and WASCEP, threat assessment and vulnerability assessment, are growing areas in the FSMS. And also food safety culture, improving the culture of the people in the organization. Now, when we go to different houses, each house has got a culture. When you reach the house, you ring the bell, and how quickly the people in the house they respond. Maybe in a house it takes almost 3 to 4 minutes someone to open the door and to offer you a drink. That is a culture. Maybe in another house you get the drink or water, immediately as soon as you ring the bell, someone is opening, you are requested to be seated, and then you are getting other drinks or beverages. So it shows the difference, how quickly two houses respond. Each organization has got a culture similarly. A factory producing milk, as mentioned in one area, has got a culture. Maybe they're managed by another organ in the same area, which is managed by another company, maybe another team, will be having different culture. So what is the culture? What is the approach towards food safety? Whether they really manage food safety, or how effectively they are implementing the food safety management system protocols in their organization, whether they have taken to their culture. As simply you can say how someone is behaving if there is no monitoring. If everyone will work perfectly if there is a monitoring. If there is no monitoring, how the people are working, how the employees are working, that shows the culture. So food safety culture is also a growing area or developing area along with FSMS or as part of FSMS standards. Now, the standards like BRC, Global Standard for Food Safety, requires a food safety culture improvement plan to be developed by the organization and executed and demonstrate improvement in the food safety culture of the organization. And how HACCP differs from FSMS standards, I have already mentioned when I went through the slides. HACCP is part of all FSMS standards and forms the core area for hazard control. HACCP is a tool, one of the tools used in the FSMS standards. And probably if you see the overall requirement side, maybe it forms around 15 to 20% of the FSMS requirement. And of course, this is the core area in all the FSMS standards. And HACCP certification is slowly getting replaced by FSMS certification. Now, internationally, the accreditation bodies have stopped the HACCP certification. And now you can see FSMS certification. Very few countries still follow HACCP certification. Even those countries who follow HACCP certification are stopping, now or in the coming years. That's happening now. So HACCP was the basic tool earlier. Now companies are following FSMS certification. That's the end, and there are different training programs available in the FSMS, like trainings on ISO 22000, FSSC 22000, BRC, HACCP, food safety, TACCEP, WASCP, food safety culture, and so on. So, as required, you can approach training providers and go for the different training programs to understand in detail. I have given you a nutshell of FSMS standards and the key contents of the FSMS standards. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much. If any questions, we can discuss now.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yes.
And I think it's time for interactive session. If you have any doubts or questions regarding the session that he had just completed, or any doubts regarding the topic, you may please ask, or you can send it in the chat box. We'll be answering it. Please don't hesitate. Feel free to ask any doubts. So there is a question in the chat box that
Yes, there is a question. Yeah, I will attend to that. Like, could you please tell us about the procedures to get those standards, especially ISO? See, if an organization wants to go for certification, the organization has to implement the FSMS standard first. So learn the standard and implement it. Normally, it takes 2 to 3 months to implement the standard. You have already seen like what are the key contents. The organization has to learn, train the employees, including management, and implement the system effectively. Normally, it takes minimum 2 to 3 months time, and then approach a certification body. So for implementation, you can approach consulting firms. If the organization has no in-house expert, you can get external expertise like consulting firms where they help the organizations to implement the FSMS standards. So they also take this much time, 2 to 3 months, because they need to prepare procedures, protocols, or upgrade the existing procedures and protocols, and train the team. Then approach the certification body. You can approach any of the certification body. There are 3,000 plus certification bodies globally. So the basic principle is you approach a reputed certification body. Maybe in your country, which is a reputed one, because when you export to different countries, you will have to see customer country also. So take a reputed certification body. Certification bodies are accredited by accreditation bodies, and there are controls on all the certification bodies. So this certification body will do the initial audit to see whether the organization has implemented the FSMS adequately. There are 2 levels of audit. Stage 1 audit to see the licenses, permits, and the basic protocols, procedures, and process of the organization. If that is found satisfactory, there will be an in-depth audit, in-depth verification by the certification body. That is called stage 2 audit, where each and every process will be verified during the audit. And if there are any deviations, then a deviation report, which is called non-conformity report, will be raised, and the organization has to close these deviations within a given timeline. The certification body will give the timeline to you, normally within a maximum of 90 days time. And once the non-conformities or the deviations are closed, so first there is a stage 1 audit, then stage 2 audit, closing the non-conformities, then the organization will be certified. The certification body will issue the certificate for a period of 3 years if it is ISO 22000. And there is variation between the schemes, slight variation. If it is BRC, it is normally 6 months or 1 year based on the grade achieved in the audit. In ISO 22000 or FSSA 22000, there is no grading of the organization, but in BRC, there is grading of the organization. So ISO 22000, it is for 3 years, and every year there will be a surveillance audit. The first year, there will be first surveillance audit, second year, second surveillance audit to see that the organization is maintaining the management system. And third year, the organization has to renew and the cycle continues. And in between or during the certification cycle, any time, depending on the certification body or accreditation body protocol, there can be announced or unannounced inspections to see that the organization is maintaining the system. So this is the overall process of certification towards ISO. I hope it is clear, Hassan. And FSSAI regulation, there is another question on FSSAI regulation. See, when we implement FSMS standard in any country, for example, you are working in India, or the company is operating in India. As part of FSMS standard, it is one of the requirements to meet the applicable regulations. So now the company is operating in India and exporting the product. 100% of the product is exported to US. So the company has to meet applicable operational regulations like FSSAI regulations in India, and also product-related regulations in US. So identify the applicable regulations. If the company is operating in India, then Indian regulation, of course, in terms of factory licensing and operation. And if the company is exporting to US regulations related to food safety, and the company is exporting to 10 different countries, then all the regulations related to the product and labeling of that country need to be addressed as part of the FSMS. Now let us talk about a company that is processing and supplying fully in India. The factory is in India and supplying to Indian market. Then company has to 100% follow the FSSAI regulation in terms of the operation, licensing, and also product. So FSSAI regulation, or Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, which is called Food Safety and Standards Regulations 2011. It is not 2010. It is based on the Act, FSSAI, Food Safety and Standards Act 2006, and the regulations 2011. All the requirements to be followed by the company. Simi, I hope it is clear to you. Now, Muhammad Sadiq, there is a question in India following any other standards other than FSSAI regulation. See, for a processing company in India, there are like state license and central license. It is a requirement, even as part of licensing, the company has to have or HACCP or FSMS certification. At least HACCP certification is recommended as part of the licensing protocol. Whether it is completely followed or not, that's a different challenge. But as part of licensing protocol, it is one of the requirements that the company has to have FSMS certification. So India, if you see the food safety regulations, it is consoled earlier before Food Safety and Standards Act 2006 and the following regulations 2011. It was really complicated, the food safety regulations in India. Like different products were controlled by different act and different ministries from the central government or state government. So now there is a consolidated act and regulation in India, and it is very easy. And there is a portal by FSSAI. If you go to FSSAI website, it is explicitly given all the applicable regulations and how this there are proper guidance also from FSSAI. There are regular training and update and regulation management or the regulatory requirement management from FSSAI. It is quite well organized from FSSAI in terms of the requirements and the regulations. So in India, the company has to follow FSSAI regulations clearly, and of course FSMS standards as required. What are the different levels of HACCP training is? The HACCP training, if you see, there are accredited training programs for HACCP. Now, internationally accredited, if you see, BRC has got BRC HACCP training, or HABC HACCP, or there are different bodies providing accredited HACCP training. Now, most commonly known in the HACCP training is HABC. It's High Field Awarding Body. That is, it is from UK. It is controlled or regulated by UK regulation actually. So they have HABC RQF. It is called Regulated Quality Framework Training, which is internationally accepted. Where I work for Aspire Training Research Consulting. We provide this kind of training programs, and we have experienced that we get participants from all across the globe, including Africa, Europe, Middle East, and so on. So mainly in GCC, like especially from India, we see people going mostly to GCC. In GCC countries, the most preferred is HABC accredited training program, HABC accredited HACCP training programs. That is the most preferred. There are many other accreditation, but from our understanding, that is most preferred. And HABC accredited training program has got different levels: level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. It is nothing but level 1 is a basic awareness program. Like it is around 4 hours session where you get basic understanding of what is HACCP. Then level 2 means, and it is level 1 is mainly aimed at entry level people or workers in the food company. That is level 1 and level 2. Level 3 and level 4 is mainly supervisory and managerial level. So it is not a requirement that you need to complete level 1 first, then go to level 2, then level 3. There is no requirement as such. It is preferred that you complete level 1, level 2. But now if you are a graduate or postgraduate, definitely directly you can go for level 3 or level 4 program. And level 4 program, if you have an industry experience, that would be better. The career opportunities, the food industry, like any food industry, the knowledge about FSMS standards and regulations, hazards and controls, that is really important, you all know. And the career, food industry is broad, as we all know. It is not one sector. in the food, maybe in the technical categorization of food industry itself, there are 18 different categories, and those are broad categories. Seafood is one category out of that. Now, if you take seafood itself, there are many subcategories of seafood. So, food industry, of course, there is a huge job requirement and also technical aspect, especially in terms of training, consulting, auditing. Always there is requirement, and since I work in this field, I know there is huge requirement in different technical areas in different organizations. So career opportunities, yes, and definitely FSMS is or understanding about the FSMS is a requirement now when you go to industry. Earlier, the practice was, what we understand is like when you have BSc or MSc, industry, directly take you. Now that is not enough. It has become competitive. So you have to have additional training or understanding on FSMS standards, because where you go, the company will be having FSMS standard, 1 or 2 or 3, or sometimes multiple standards. So organization need people who have awareness training or internal auditor training programs, at least in these schemes. Fatima, I hope I have answered you.
Sir, I think you didn't answer. You skipped the question which is asked by Zainul Abid. How to recover the spoiled fishes? Is there any existing recovery methods?
How to recover the spoiled fishes? Is there any existing recovery? Spoiled fishes means it's already gone, right? What is spoilage? That need to be defined here. Spoilage means which is spoiled and chemically and microbiologically unsafe. If it is unsafe, then there is no recovery, it's gone. Now, Zubair sir is there from specifically, with expertise in fisheries. So if you have any points that you can add. But technically speaking, spoiled fish, it's chemically and microbiologically unsafe, right? If it is chemically and microbiologically unsafe, then it is gone. Then it is a utilization for other purposes. Like practically we utilize for a fish meal. Now that is also large industry. There are many factories, even in India, who process fish meal where spoiled fishes are also utilized. If it is chemically, microbiologically unsafe, means there is no gaining back. Microbiologically unsafe means you can probably cook it and make it safe. But chemically gone means then there is no getting back, so utilize for other purposes. That is a normal practice in the industry. Any other question?
Is there any questions? I think you all should not miss this opportunity to interact with him. I have got a question. Which are the HACCP like short-term courses that we can opt after MSc?
If it is HACCP, specifically, I would tell you, if you are planning to go to industry, definitely try to attend. If you are a fresher after MSc, like, go for at least HACCP level 3 program, an accredited program. Please ensure that you are going for accredited program which is accepted internationally. There are many trainings, HACCP trainings given by different institutions. You will get a certificate on the name of the institution, but that may not be accepted globally when you go to different countries. So at least try to complete a level 3 training program, and also maybe awareness and internal auditor training program on FSMS standards like FSMS or FSSC or BRC at least. Because now when you go to industry, you need to have these two at least. So then you will be getting a preference also. So I would suggest, from my experience, I would suggest at least a level 3 program in HACCP by an accredited agency, and ensure that you have an accredited certificate. And FSMS internal auditor program. Internal auditor program, normally the training bodies do not give accredited one, because accredited means that is IRCA is the accreditation normally. International Register of Certificated Auditors. But internal auditor training, even unaccredited certificate, is generally accepted because it's not a mandatory requirement that FSMS internal auditor need to be accredited. But lead auditor, that's a lengthy 5-day course. Internal auditor is normally 2-day course. Level 3 program is also 2-day course. So internal auditor not necessarily to be accredited. It can be by any certification body or a reputed training provider.
Hello.
I hope it's clear.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, you already told this HACCP system is replaced by this FSMS management system. So
Yes.
in this situation, we have to go for a HACCP system or any other FSMS management system training are available.
Yeah, right. Here, one thing, HACCP, of course, it's the core area. It's a tool in identifying the hazards, physical hazard, chemical hazard, or biological hazard. So if you take any FSMS standard, HACCP is one of the core tools. HACCP certification, I mean, there are two aspects, okay? One is HACCP certification of the company. Like a company is audited against implemented HACCP system based on the 7 principles of the HACCP, That is one aspect. And that certification is getting replaced with FSMS certification. But still, when you take the FSMS, HACCP is a part of the FSMS. So when you implement FSMS, you should know how HACCP is implemented because it's a key component of the FSMS. It's a key tool in the hazard management. Or that is the tool, in the hazard management based on codex guidelines. So, when you go to work in a company, you need to have thorough understanding about HACCP and also an understanding about FSMS standards. So I hope it is clear now. Certification, I said, in terms of certification of organizations as a standard, that HACCP certification is getting replaced, or it's mostly it is replaced now. Now I know, and I work for 2 certification bodies which are working in 100+ countries, and this certificate we have already stopped accredited HACCP certification. But even certain small companies come and say, we cannot afford to go for ISO 22000. We need a HACCP certification. In that case, that organization will be audited and unaccredited certificate will be issued by the certification body, which has no international acceptance, in fact, if it is unaccredited. So the certification of the organization HACCP is getting replaced by FSMS, or already replaced. I would say more than 90% it is getting replaced if you roughly based on a global scenario. Of course, certain countries, I have seen UAE still HACCP certification is there by the as per government accreditation, but even UAE is getting or going to stop the HACCP and going to mandate FSMS certification very soon. That's the news coming out. But definitely learning of HACCP is a must when we go forward, since it is a key tool in the FSMS certifications. I hope this is clear.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, has our seafood industry switched over to this FSMS?
Yeah, seafood very much now. In the seafood, the HACCP certification is almost not there. Definitely, initially it was HACCP approval by EIA, Export Inspection Agency, and then they get the export license. Now also HACCP approval by EIA is there, but when we talk about the certification, all the companies, they go for FSMS or FSSC or BRC certifications. Especially if you want to do EU, definitely any of the FSMS certification is mandated by the customer or the customer country. So that is there. Then you can get EIA approval based on the EIA norms, and of course HACCP is part of that. But in terms of certification, again, by the certification bodies, HACCP is almost, you can't see HACCP certification by certification bodies in the seafood industry. Almost you will not see. Now, I have gone to so many seafood companies in India, and no one is following HACCP. Definitely, I have visited 100 plus seafood companies for audit purposes, and I haven't seen they're following HACCP, but mainly FSMS, that is ISO 22000, or BRC food, or FSSC, and exceptionally IFS food. But EIA approval for HACCP is a must because it's a or a minimal legal requirement.
Okay. Okay.
Hope that was clear. And there is 2 more questions in the chat box. I hope you can see.
So, according to FSSAI regulation, food business divides small, medium, large for registration and licensing purpose. Different from MSME definition. My question for what to do satisfy MSME condition. Now, I do not know exactly how this is. Now, there are 2 things. One is FSSAI license is for the petty food business operators, like retail, maybe small restaurant, or maybe a fish vendor, or a small grocery shop. In that case, they have to go for registration by respective food safety, registration with respective food safety authorities. So they give a registration, and then based on the business turnover or the production capacity, there is a chart given by FSSAI in their website. So based on production capacity and also turnover, there is a table. And also for specific products, there is a central license or state license. So license issued by central authority or by state authority. These are the 3 categories of maybe registration or licensing as part of FSSAI. Okay. And MSME conditions, I do not know exactly. I am not an expert in that. Maybe probably that you will have to check. But again, now central government has got consolidated registration for all the organizations, which is known as Udyam registration, where you can register food business or any business based on the capacity and size, and they categorize into MSME based on, again, this is the criteria. In any categorization, this number, the capacity, number of employees, or the turnover, this becomes the criteria, mainly turnover and the capacity. So that you can really check it. But for FSSAI, this registration or state license or central license. Registration for petty, that is the word used by the regulation. So that you can further recheck. Simi.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, this document PPT I can share with the organizer. Accordingly, you can get it. Not a problem.
I hope everyone's doubts were clear. And can we end the interactive session? Okay. Now let us move on to the vote of thanks. And for that, I would like to invite the convener of the program, Dr. Mujib Rahman, for.
Respected Principal, Dr. James sir, Dr. Subhay sir, Head of the Department of Aquaculture and Fishery Microbiology, and respected resource persons, Dr. Muhammad Rafiq sir, Mr. Jason Alpat sir, and my dear teaching colleagues, research scholars, students, and different other faculties from universities and other countries, and also different persons and eminent personalities from different industries, just like technicians, quality controls. So First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Muhammad Rafiq sir for a wonderful session on food safety management system standards and significance. Thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful session. And he also give a opportunities in the food industries. So this will be very beneficial to the students and research scholars after completing this food science courses. So thank you once again, sir.
Thank you.
For your wonderful session and your experience in the career guidance. So we will touch it with sir for future endeavors. And I also express my okay, sir. And I also express my sincere thanks to Dr. Rajim sir, Principal MS Panani College, Dr. Subair sir, HOD, Department of Aquaculture and Fishery Microbiology, then Mr. Rashid, correspondent and secretary of MS Panani College. I also express my sincere thanks to all the teachers, faculties from different universities, colleges, and all the technicians, consultants, medical representatives, lab technicians who attend this seminar. And I also thanks the students of my department who help us to do this seminar. A wonderful job. Thank you, sir. Thank you all, and we hope we can meet tomorrow at the same time, 10:30, for another wonderful session by Jason Alpert, sir. Okay, thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, and thank you everyone who has taken their effort and time to attend this session and made this a success. Thank you.
Subair, sir. സാർ എന്തെങ്കിലും സാറിന് സാർ ഇപ്പോൾ പോയി റഫീഖ് സാർ പോയി. ഞാൻ എന്തെങ്കിലും പറയാണ്ടെങ്കിൽ പറയാമെന്ന് വിചാരിച്ചിട്ടേ. സാറിന് എന്തെങ്കിലും പറയാണ്ടെങ്കിൽ
ഫോൺ ചെയ്ത് സംസാരിക്കും.
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ.